Okay, Tucker, we're going to have a talk. All right, before we do this, I have a question. Who looks at a newborn baby and says, Tucker, that's the name, Tucker? I'm just so baffled by this. I mean, kids can be cruel. Who would name their kid a word that rhymes with sucker, pucker, and just saying? Inquiring minds want to know. Okay. One of the news sources that I regularly watch is Fox News. Why, I don't know, since most of the time I spend yelling at it. Not that any other news channel would be much different. But that's one I'm familiar with, one of the ones I watch. As you know, I watch from all over the spectrum. There's probably not a perspective that I don't watch, except for I don't watch or listen to very many libertarians, because I already know what we think. And I want to hear what other people think, so that, hey, if I'm wrong, I can change my mind. Also, when I debate or when I present perspectives, I want to present the best that another side has to offer. So that's what I do. When I'm listening, I'm actually listening to try to find points of agreement. I want to be able to acknowledge when another side has a good point. But when they have a stinkeroo, they just stink up the joint, you know? So with that introduction in place, I was watching Tucker Carlson the other day. Actually, I was watching him on YouTube, but it was a Fox News rebroadcast. And the topic was these allegations of election fraud. Maybe I'll talk about that in another show. That's it, kind of tangential, but I'm just giving you the background. I can give you my brief summary of my position on the election fraud issue. I don't think there was election fraud to the extent that it changed the outcome of the election. Every election in a country this large, there's going to be some fraud, and politics is a cancer in a sewer. So, of course, there's going to be some fraud. But I don't think they're going to find this widespread, Illuminati conspiracy. However, that's a serious allegation, and all such allegations should be investigated. These shrill cries of the media, like, how dare you question our most holy election? Really? Really? That seems to me, see, that makes me suspicious that there's something, because the cries are so loud. But it's just partisan bullshit, because these same people who are just so offended and clutching their pearls that people would dare to question the results this time did it last time. And I thought their claim was equally full of shit.
I think it's also critical to understand that, as I've been telling candidates who have come to see me, you can run the best campaign, you can even become the nominee, and you can have the election stolen from you.
All roads seem to lead to Putin with the president, though. Isn't it so?
And I have concerns about all roads leading to Putin, which again, all roads lead to Putin. The list goes on and on.
You're running as the most unpopular person who has ever run for president, Donald Trump, and you lost to him anyway. No, the Russians very likely did this.
With the Russian operatives. But I said the same thing then that I'm saying now. That's a serious allegation. It should be investigated. And they investigated it for years. But now they're getting their panties all in a wad to give Trump a few weeks. It's all crap. It's all political theater, and it's such rank hypocrisy. So now that I pretty much said my opinion just of both major parties and both players on both sides pretty much suck, let's get back to Tucker. So, watching Tucker. And I'm listening because, gathering information. And I agreed with him with a lot of points about the hypocrisy of the left right now. Of course, the same hypocrisy was going on with the right when they were complaining about the Democrats questioning the election in 2016. They're both full of crap. But so I'm listening. And then I hear something that just went, I'm like, Tucker, did you even listen to what you said? Did you? Because it's self-refuting. Not just for you guys, but like everyone kind of says this. But if you step back and think about it, it implodes upon itself. But I'll start playing the clips. I got 4 clips of Tucker. I'm just laying the groundwork here. And then as the clips went on, I just started getting angry. Angrier and angrier. Almost a Greta Thunberg, how dare you?
How dare you?
But now, let's go through it. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Clip number 1.
You can't simply tell people to accept an outcome because force doesn't work in a democracy. That's dictatorship. In a free society, you have to convince the public of your legitimacy. You have to win them over with reason. Democracy is always a voluntary arrangement.
Okay. Hey, I agree that force is a dictatorship, Tucker. And he claims that democracy is a voluntary arrangement. You want to know what, Tucker? I don't consent. I don't consent to having rulers. I don't consent to the crap idea of political authority that we have in this country. I don't consent to the force you advocate. Because from what I understand from watching you enough, there are plenty of victimless crime laws that you support. Unless, Tucker, do you think prostitution should be legal? Do you think all drugs should be legal? I bet you there are plenty of things that you think should be illegal that really is the government completely interfering in one person's or another person's bodily autonomy. So don't give me that. Don't act like, oh, so pure. My vision of democracy is voluntary. You want to know how many people don't consent, Tucker? You know how many people didn't consent to the higher prices, the hidden higher prices that came in through Trump's tariffs? I didn't consent to that. Where's the voluntary? So in that statement, you just wonder, did you listen to yourself? Did you listen to yourself? Did you listen to all the Democrats last time said Trump's not my president? It wasn't voluntary. They didn't consent to that. Oh, well, they consented by participating. Really? You can never withdraw consent? It remains, once you say yes once, that could have some pretty horrible implications. Hey, you started kissing me, now you got to have sex. You can't withdraw your consent. That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. So that is the statement that first caught my ears because I was like, yep, force is dictatorship. And the Republicans advocate a tremendous amount of force. I'm glad you admit that you're dictators. First step. Journey of 1,000 miles begins with that single step, Tucker. Let's go on to clip number 2.
This is not a matter of rewarding your supporters. It's much bigger than that, and it's of deep concern to every American. If we're going to have free and fair elections going forward, and we must, then we have to end Silicon Valley's total control over information. It's the first thing we must do. We can't have free and fair elections without doing that. If voters aren't allowed to learn critical facts about political candidates before they vote, you can't have a democracy. And of course, that's why they're doing it.
Free and fair elections. That's an interesting concept, Tucker, and I submit that you don't believe in them. Or at least the party you shill for doesn't believe in it. That you are propping up some of the most suppressive tactics and bad actors. Yet you say with a straight face that you want free and fair elections? I'm going to let these other clips run too, and I'm going to address it all because they kind of build upon each other. So let's go to the next one.
When people believe that their candidate can't win, and that's what the polls told us, can't win, they are less likely to vote for that candidate and much less likely to send him money. Would you want to be the guy sending money to a losing candidate? No, you wouldn't. And no one else would either. A study by researchers at McGill University and the University of Toronto found this, quote, polls may lead people not to vote for a given party because that party is perceived to be unlikely to win. Yeah, didn't need researchers to tell us that. That's obvious. Maybe that's why they did it. We don't know. We should find out.
That smug face. Really? You agree that the way polling is done can affect perception and people don't want to vote for a loser, and that polling can actually be very manipulative on the political system. You don't say. We'll come back to that.
But here's what we do know. On a larger level, at the highest levels, actually, our system isn't what we thought it was. It's not as fair as it should be. Not even close. Sorry, hate to say that. It's the milk bottles at the fair. They knew you were coming. They laughed at you when you left. We wish that wasn't true, but it is true. And you are not crazy for knowing it. You're right.
So, Tucker, you're finding that the decks are stacked unfairly against the candidates you support and the party you support. I can't possibly know how that feels. Why don't you tell me about it? You're like, not you personally, but that kind of argument. It's like the bully that's gotten away with bullying everybody for years, but when a bigger bully comes along, then all of a sudden they're crying, oh my God, I'm being bullied. So what is this that I'm on about? Well, Tucker, free and fair elections. You think we had them before? You think the Republicans want free and fair elections? You're either being willfully blind, which isn't a particularly flattering point of view, or you're being deceitful, which is even less flattering. So let me back up. Let me back up this horse and tell you what I'm on about, okay? Free and fair elections. I wish we had free and fair elections, Tucker. For those who haven't watched my channel before, let me tell you a bit about myself. I'm the National Secretary for the Libertarian Party. The Libertarian Party is the third largest political party in the country. We've existed for 50 years. We've ran top of the ticket candidates for 50 years. Yet, every couple of years, or at least every 4, we have to spend upwards of $500,000 just for the privilege of getting our name on the ballot. You see, most people in this country have no idea of the kind of ballot censorship that goes on. Pretty much anyone thinks you want to run for president, anyone can do it, right? Kanye found out you couldn't. He found out, and he's rich as hell, about the ballot censorship, about the unreasonable thresholds that are put in place. And why are they put in place, Tucker? And who put them in place? The cartel of both the Republicans and the Democrats, because they don't like competition. It's a racket. And I've never heard you say a word about it. Yet you're sitting here, oh, free and fair elections. Really, tell me about it. Tucker, tell me about it. Let's take a look at some of this, shall we? Let's look at one from this year. Look. Texas Supreme Court rejects Republicans' attempt to remove 44 libertarians from the November ballot. You guys are always doing that to us. I wonder why. And the Democrats are always trying to do it to the Greens. I wonder why. You don't like the competition? I thought you wanted free and fair elections. I thought you said that voters should get to hear about the candidates. Oh, or is it only your two? Only those? Okay, I get it. So there's one. I could pull up hundreds of these, but we're just going to do a little smattering here, Tucker, since you care so much about free and fair elections, right? New York. The Libertarian Party has had a hell of a time getting ballot access in New York because the bar kept getting raised. And we finally did it in the governor's race. Just back up for viewers here, because I'm assuming you know all of this, Tucker, and you were okay with it, though free and fair elections, right? You keep saying that. The way each state is different, but in most states, a candidate has to get a certain percentage in certain select races in order to have ballot access. Now, that's not always the case. I'm in Colorado. In Colorado, you have to show a very minimal amount of support. You have to get 1,000 people to be willing, because we do have partisan registration, to register as libertarian voters, and you've got automatic ballot access. And guess what? Just like with the legalization of weed, the apocalypse didn't happen. But in New York, it was extremely difficult. And then we finally did it. And you want to know what happened? Immediately afterwards, the old parties, and you are in bed with the Democrats with this, so don't go, oh, it was the Democrat. The old parties raised the bar again. Why? What are you scared of, Tucker? Don't you want free and fair elections? Ah, look at this. Republicans target minor parties after election losses. Does that sound free and fair to you? This happens all the time. And this was back in 2013, so don't think I'm just dealing right now with current history. This goes back. It's always been this way. Look at this. You two are in cahoots. How Republicans and Democrats prevent independent candidates from getting on the ballot. Enforcing that cartel, huh? I thought you said that it wasn't right for voters not to get to learn about candidates. I mean, we have candidates they never get to learn about because you guys sue us to keep us off the ballot, or you use your power to suppress other candidates. Here we go again. Arizona law keeps libertarians off ballot, just as GOP wanted. It's exactly, look at that line right there. It's exactly the way Republican lawmakers designed it. Free and fair elections, free and fair, right? The hypocrisy stinks. So now let's go over a few more. Look at this. Ohio Republicans toss top ticket libertarians off the ballot. Now, this is a news source from my own party, but you could find all of this. It's in court still. You really want to see a nightmare one, look up Oklahoma ballot access. I could spend hours doing this. And here we go. There were GOP ties when we got tossed off the ballot. This was back in 2014. This isn't even the most recent time. So tell me about those free and fair elections, Tucker. Tell me about it. Because I have no idea what it's like to think elections aren't free and fair. I have no idea what it's like to have schemes against you, to have a candidate that you favor get suppressed I have no idea. I have no idea how that feels, Tucker. Funny how you all of a sudden care about it now. Now, I care about potential fraud for its own sake. But I tell you, I ain't crying no tears for you guys. I hope you get it good and hard, as good as you gave. But let's continue. Let's continue with the hypocrisy. And let's talk about free and fair elections. Let's go over here and let me set the stage for you. This is C-SPAN, obviously. It's in 2000. And Jesse Ventura is talking about the presidential debates and the way that third parties have been systematically excluded from these debates. Because, see, it's the Commission on Presidential Debates. It sounds all nice and official, but it's not. It's a private organization. And who is it run by? Appointees of the Democrat and Republican parties, who pretty much have an agreement that there'll never be anyone else on stage. Does that sound free and fair to you? Does that sound like voters aren't getting information on candidates by design? Oh, it's okay when you guys do it. But now that you're getting a taste of your own medicine, you're crying foul. My baloney has a first name. Okay, I won't torture you with my singing. But let's listen. So that's the context here. And a very interesting person comes up after Mr. Ventura and states their opinion on this issue. And it was very inspiring. And you would think that this person, who obviously cares about free and fair elections, and I assume still cares about free and fair elections today, that if they ever had it within their power to make sure this, frankly, an atrocity, that might even be the words they used, got rectified. I mean, right now, this person doesn't have the power, but who knows? That was 2000. Maybe, in the future, like such 2016, they might, get more power. But let's see. Let's see this mystery speaker that's about to come up.
And I think it's cheating the American public. I think, as I said, it's despicable on their part. And I would hope people would be as outraged about it as I am. All other criteria and major party status is listed at 5%. 5% to be major party, 5% for federal funding and all that. Yet on debating, it's 15% now. And rest assured, if we came in with a 15%, they'd raise it to 20. It would be based upon whatever it takes to keep us out. Take a look at 92 when Ross Perot ran and got 19% of the vote. That's 1 out of every 5 people that voted for Ross Perot, and yet the next election he was cut out of it. And I think that it's unfair to put pollsters in that position. It's shirking the duty of what this committee is supposed to do. And now they're putting it onto the pollsters. Well, it's the pollsters that decide. Well, a poll can be skewered. I can go out and get you a poll on anything you want and probably get the results that I want, just in how I conduct it. And I think it's bad. It's terrible that lobbyists, professional lobbyists today are now deciding who will be allowed to debate for President of the United States. And it's obvious they don't want us in the Reform Party because they don't make money off us. They don't have influence with us. So typical to lobbying, they're being lobbied and they're now doing their lobbying. Pretty sad.
Well, I agree 100% with Jesse. It's disgraceful. It's amazing that they can get away with it. The Republicans and Democrats are the ones that, as you know, chose I guess you have 3 members of each, and they're the ones that chose. If you look at your lobbyists and everyone else, they're all Republicans or Democrats. And I'll add one additional thing. I watched the Republican debate last night, and I'll tell you what, if the right person was debating against whoever the winner of that group is, they'd have a major impact on the election, because that was not a very inspiring group of people that I was watching last night. So I think they're very concerned. I think they're extremely nervous about it. And I also think that probably the law will be changed in this case, or the rule may be changed in this case, Jesse, because it's just inconceivable to me that they can allow this to happen.
Would you be willing to go to court to challenge it?
I think I probably would. I mean, Pat Buchanan's right now in court. He's going to get nowhere probably. But the fact is that let him spend his money first. Let's see how he does. If he doesn't do it, we'll step in and maybe we can do something. But the fact is, it seems very, very unfair to me.
Would either of you guys get 50%?
Well, I think this guy would, and I think based on our polls, we would. Based on what we've done internally, we would. If people think that I'm running, we do great. A lot of people say, oh, he's maybe not going to run. He's just having lots of fun. That's not the case. If people think that we're running, seriously running, we do very well. I just think it's unfair, though, regardless of that, to have such a high standard, a high criteria for a party.
Okay. That was really interesting, wasn't it? So, Donald Trump back in 2000 was saying how absolutely unfair it is that third parties aren't included in the debates. And he probably would do something about it. Now, of course, he could have just been, shooting his mouth off back then. What really could he have done? He could have sued. People have sued many times. But these appointed judges that are appointed by Democrats and Republicans never gets anywhere. But, Donald Trump, happened to be president 16 years later. And did he do anything about it? Because you're telling me he really, really cares about free and fair elections. No, he didn't do shit about it. And let me tell you something you might not know, Tucker. The Libertarian Party arranged for an alternative venue that was actually being sponsored and hosted. Sponsored might not be the right word, but the facility was being arranged for and provided for us by a very distinguished retired member of the military. And we had, I can't remember the name now, it'll come to me, but we had a very distinguished moderator lined up. And we invited Mr. Trump. At that time, he was saying he wasn't going to go to the last debate because it was going to be online only. So we said, hey, we can have an in-person one here. Do you think he thought then, oh yeah, you know how unfair it is? These guys really should be heard. No, our request was ignored. Of course, Biden did the exact same thing. They're both equally crappy. But I don't have Biden on record bowing up about how unfair it was, nor going on now about free and fair elections, about how things shouldn't be rigged against candidates, how there shouldn't be corruption. And you said something about polls, Tucker, about how polls and the media can influence things very, very unfairly. I agree. I do. Let's take a look at something, shall we? Because you care, right, about free and fair elections. So, Trump had been this year attacking the Presidential Debate Commission. So he was already looking at how bad they are. But did he at all bring up the fact that third parties aren't included? Did he, say, well, I'm just going to right all of these wrongs? No, he didn't. Because he didn't really care about free and fair, did he? And let me tell you something about us this time, Tucker. The criteria, see, the argument I hear is, well, you can't have 100 people up there. It would take a week and it'd be unwieldy. Let me just take that as true for the sake of argument. So what would be a fair criteria? Right now, we'll deal with the right now. Let's just talk about, though, what would be a free and fair criteria. Let me tell you what the Libertarian Party has put forth. And I'd love to hear you tell me how this isn't fair. If a party has managed to fight its way to ballot access with the rigged ballot access laws by the duopoly, but if they've managed to overcome the ballot access laws so that they're on enough ballots in enough states to theoretically win the 270 electoral college votes to win the whole thing, they should be allowed in the debates. Seems pretty reasonable to me. Tell me how that's not reasonable. And guess what? We were on the ballot. The Libertarian Party was on the ballot in 50 plus DC. Yet the media ignores us. It's a media blackout. They go out of their way not to mention us. In Colorado, when they were looking, the media had up the voter registration statistics. It said Democrat, Republican, and unaffiliated. I'm not unaffiliated. We've got over 40,000 libertarians here in Colorado. You would be squealing like a frickin' stuck pig if that was done to you. Right, free and fair. I assume you will now become a champion, Tucker, if you have any integrity for reforming this whole system. There's no reason that the libertarians shouldn't have been included. I'll let the Greens argue for the Greens. Trump had his eye on the Presidential Debate Commission and didn't do jack about the unfairness to third parties. All right, so let's look at a few more things. Okay, there's been all kinds of lawsuits against the rigged rules. So what are these rules? The current one, I missed the T. The current rule is the Debate Commission's 15% rule, which requires third-party or independent candidates with little name recognition and resources to poll at 5%. See, 5 might have been reasonable, right? Because you get millions of dollars from the government if you get 5% in an election, but they put it at 15. Yeah. To poll at 15% in 5 national polls handpicked by the Debate Commission. They have to accomplish this feat even as those polls bury their names. Oh, what a neat trick. The media ignores them, and the electoral rules require them to spend all of their money pretty much just to get on the ballot. Boy, that's a nice scam if you can get it. So tell me about those polls, Tucker. Let's look at something else. U.S. presidential debate rules out third-party candidates. There hasn't been a third-party candidate on the stage since Ross Perot. Wonder why that is. Because Ross Perot scared the living crap out of the duopoly. The exclusion, the unfair exclusion, is why the League of Women Voters isn't the one putting on the debates anymore. Now let's see here. This is a letter to the editor or an opinion op-ed. Third-party candidates need to be heard. The CPD, which is the Commission on Presidential Debates, ensures Americans won't hear third parties' voices by requiring their candidates to poll above 15%. But guess what? They're not included in the polls. Ain't that free and fair? Gotta love these free and fair elections, don't you, Tucker? Okay, I think that's it for the news. I think I've proven my point here, Tucker. So I'm going to take you at your word that you really, really care about free and fair elections. You've got a tremendous platform there. Millions of people. And I'm going to be charitable and assume you just didn't know about all of this. And this is the tip of the iceberg. And that you will be a champion for actual free and fair elections. And if you don't, we can just conclude that you're full of and all of these other arguments. And it's only when it affects your interests. Which is it? I'll be watching. We shall see if you and Fox, Sean Hannity, and everyone crying about free and fair elections actually gives a crap. Hope springs eternal, but the smart money is on this will continue to be ignored. Hypocrites, brood of vipers, whitewashed tombs. All right, everyone. That's all I've got for you. I hope you enjoyed this, and my Liberty people, I hope you have an awesome day while we dream of even having the slight appearance of free and fair elections.